Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Allah fi kulli umri yasta'in. Wa Allah fi kulli umri amjid. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Lil akibati mustaqim. وفي أرض سماوات في الأرض وسلطانه وملكه في كل أمر في كل شيء قدير. محمد هو سيدنا ومحبوبنا إننا نحبه ونتبعه وشريعته وسنته نحافظه صلوات ربي تسليماته عليه ولإخواني هو من أنبياء ومرسلين صلوات الله تعالى وسلامه عليه. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. لإخواني وأخواتي في دين وفي إفريقيا وأوروبا وآسيا وأمريكا. والسلام على من اتبع هدى لإخواني وأخواتي في كل مكان. أهلا وسهلا بكم. كيف حالكم وعائلتكم مع الله. Thank you, my dear brothers and sisters, for showing up today, and those who will show up, inshallah, to hear khutbah on an important matter. I'm concluding the second part of about the Sharia versus democracy and why there's the benefits of that. But I'm going to branch into something because it's very important, because we have a lot of mistakes in a particular field. And as you see, as you read the title, it's very important because we don't want to make mistakes in our lives as Muslims, because we're held accountable for it. We're not like the others. The others, they are unaccountable for anything because they don't have any books per se to guide them, because their religions are in disarray. And I don't mean that to be in slight, but this is the truth. The Muslims, we have guided ways and means to help us in just about all facets of life. Even the subject I'm about to cover, we have something even for that. The Sharia Islamiyah, min Allah, is from Allah and our messenger, Salatu Salam. Well, he gave us the essence of what Subhanahu wa Ta'ala wants, and he carried on from the prophets of old. And in the Quran, Subhanahu wa Ta'ala has made clear that we make no distinctions among them. So none of us are qualified to say one is better than the other. That lies within the domain of Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. So with that said, let me give my salams here to my sister Amina. Salamu alaikum, dear sister. My dear brother Isaac. Salamu alaikum. And Malik, my brother. Salamu alaikum. The Muslim mean, we have felicitations that are absolutely beautiful, that are far greater than anything else on this earth. When we give salamu alaikum to our brothers and our sisters, these are heavenly words, and these words are spoken in Jannah. These words are encouraged among us because we have a brotherhood that's unlike any other. You hear the others talk about their brotherhood, but none have the brotherhood that we have like in Islam. Yes, we have cracks here and there, we have falters here and there, we have things to do wrong. But the essence of Islam is when we give this salam, is when we're inside the masjid and you see every single person knows exactly what to do when he gets inside the masjid. They fall together, irrespective of race, irrespective of who has the much money, irrespective of his aura in the community. Everybody lines up. There's no differences. There's no, this man is white man, so he's go ahead of this black man, or this man's black and he goes ahead of white. This distinction with us in Islam is great. What makes us a better human being than most of the human beings on this earth. And again, it's not to say that the Jews and Christians and Hindus are bad. That's not what I'm saying here. I'm only talking about the Muslims because we have mechanisms in place that makes us, in Subhanahu wa Ta'ala's eyes, the best. And he says this in the Quran. And because the others have forgotten their books, they don't follow their books. But the Muslims, in essence, we still follow it. And we do fall. We falter. We have that. But in essence, the Muslims are the best that creation can create. Why? Because we follow Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, and we have the best example as far as the best human being in our Prophet, alayhi salatu salam. And since we following him, since we follow the beautiful book that he's handed down to our Prophet, that makes us the best of creations. And this is my opinion, and I concur with Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, as you always hear me say. Whatever is said in the Quran, I say this in Arabic emphatically. Innani aqulu ma yaqul. I say what it say. And when my Prophet speaks, alayhi salatu salam, innani aqulu ma yaqul. I say what he says. I make sure that there's no apologies here from this Muslim to the world or any the disbelievers or the hypocrites that I'm ashamed to follow Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, and I'm ashamed to follow a prophet. No, you won't get that here. Maybe some other shows, but not this Muslim. I won't. So with that said, my dear brothers and sisters, we have a crisis in some ways. We have demonstrations that are occurring everywhere in the world. Okay, I mean, bottom line, we have demonstrations that are occurring in America, Asia, Europe, so forth and so on. And Muslims are participating in this. And, we have fatwas, religious rulings in this regard, but some of them are very vague. I spent the other day practically from the early morning to late at night reading fatwas, some in English that were given some of the English speaking countries, and then in Arabic from some of our greatest sheikhs, Islam, and even some of them were vague, to be honest. And so with that said, as you know the rules with the Muslims, if there's a dispute between the Muslims, or there's something not clear to the Muslims, and we need a decision among the Muslims, what do? We go to the Quran, we go to Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, and we go to his messenger, alayhi salatu salam. And we look there to see if we can find the answer. If it's not clear, then we move to another direction to our companions, and then to the favorite generations, and to our scholars from every year. And this particular topic is a very sensitive one, because it entails something that the Muslims basically are not required to do, and it's forbidden to do. You say, Yahya, what are you talking about? You're saying that we cannot fight justice when we have a hadith from our prophet that says that we can fight injustice. Yes, but we have a method to do it, and we must follow that. Now, let's get into this. The demonstrations that we know today are not Muslim generated, nor are they Muslim created. The demonstrations that we have today are what? They come from the Jews, the Christians, and the non-believers, and if you say, well, yeah, I disagree with you, all we have to do is look at January the 6th here at the Capitol in the United States and see what that demonstration led to. It was a mob that killed. It killed people. And when we look at the history of demonstrations among the disbelievers, we have this. Today, the Muslims are following the example of the disbelievers, which we never should ever do. We are forbidden. Our prophet has forbade us to follow anything of the disbelievers or use their ways against another believer. And remember, I said my catch-all phrase is Surah Nisa, verse 141. Subhanahu wa Ta'ala again always says, He will not put the way of the disbeliever over the believer. And when we use their ways and means, we usually get in trouble. This is what is happening now. And we see in the United States, we just had before us last week or so, 2 weeks of violent killing again from the Israeli government, our brothers in Palestine. And what happened? We had demonstrations inside the United States. Suddenly, Muslims participated in demonstrations against the Israeli government. And what some of them did, they killed. They went and found Jews, innocent, walking down the street and killed and tried to, they didn't kill them. They maimed them pretty bad. And 6 or 7 and a whole host of other Muslims were arrested for violently, to harm a citizen for no reason. And this is what I was talking about before. I had discussion like this with my wife. We talked about the demonstrations because we have to have a means to express injustices. And we do have that. So with that said, those demonstrations inside the United States usually turn violent. And there's a reason why they usually turn violent. Because as I said to you last week, I gave you a tidbit of this. Usually the demonstrations that are held by the disbelievers, there's another person in there. It's the devil. The devil gets to work himself inside the crowd and he begins to make the people frenzy. Suddenly, people don't know what they're doing. They begin to kill. They begin to stampede others. They begin to get rocks and bottles and begin to throw. And because the devil is inflaming that. The Muslims, we should not be involved in that. Because why? If we're walking in that demonstration, we should be saying, Dhikr Allah. That way it forbids the shaitan and the shayatin to come among us. Because if we're walking down and we are protesting, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, shaitan doesn't like that. He goes away. Alhamdulillah, La ilaha illallah. And you hear the Muslims saying this in unison, so loud that the heavens open up. The shayatin, they're gone. Shaitan says, hey, this is too tough for me. I can't work through these guys. I'm going to move to softer targets. But when the Muslims join in with the disbelievers and their way of demonstrations, guess what happens? Bad things happen. Like in New York, where they beat up that poor Jewish man, had nothing to do with the killings in Gaza. And they beat him. And they were arrested for it. And the police used that as a vehicle to arrest wholesale amount of Muslims. They had nothing to do even with the beating. They begin to arrest Muslims and say, look, you saw it. You didn't do anything. They arrested them. And this is what I'm talking about, how we have to understand when we can protest, how we protest, and what's the regulations for the protest. So one of the things that is important that we as Muslims understand is that the demonstration is a form of bid'ah, we call in Arabic, mean innovation, because we don't really have that. And we've had examples, which I gave last week. One of the most famous demonstrations, infamous, I should say, is when they killed the third caliph, Uthman, radiallahu anhu. They killed him, and they killed him over a lie. The Muslims got together, and the shaitan got together with them. And what did they do? They ended up, it's supposed to be peaceful. They wanted to go talk, and they end up killing the Khalifa. This is a warning to the brothers and sisters even today. We see this. It starts peacefully, and then suddenly Shaitan gets there, and it becomes violent. And you got to always remember something. The security forces that are there to quote unquote protect are not practicing Muslims. Most of them, even in Muslim states, they don't have the covenant with Subhanahu wa Ta'ala because they have left the religion. A lot of them have. And so therefore they have made their advances upon the devil, upon the Tuba and their governments. They don't even make a covenant even upon the rulers of the land. They make their own covenants among themselves, especially with the Tuba. So they have no quorums to come to beat you or me and to kill us where we stand in the demonstration. That's why we have to be smart and we have to understand when we do it. So let me give you some things here. I got a lot of things from the Sheikh Islams from the past, and this is in Arabic, but I'm gonna translate all this for you. One of the things that we have to always understand as Muslims, Okay, I come and I go outside and I see 10, 12, 15, 16 people, Muslims. I begin to talk about some situation. I said, look, I'm getting ready to demonstrate in front of the government building here in Fez, for instance. And the Muslims begin to follow me. This is a no-no. You should not do it because we do not know the truth behind it. And someone could get hurt. And we have to be very careful of that. And you remember something, the Muslim's life is when he wakes up in the morning and he goes to bed. In between those times and between those salats, we have what is halal and haram, right? What is allowed for us as Muslims and what is forbidden for us as Muslims. That's what governs us. And the salat during the day. So we have to always weigh that. And in many instances, demonstrations is haram to do. And we have many Sheikh Islams, we're in argument, many of them argument over this. They say it's strictly forbidden, period. I mean, conservatively, they don't even want to hear any of the excuses. No, yes, there's injustices. Yes, the government has done this, but you should not demonstrate. But we have other Sheikh Islam says, no, wait a minute. We have a way of doing it. If we meet certain conditions, we should do it. Okay, so we have that. And some of the Sheikh Islams like Sheikh Kawadawi, the father of the ulama fuqaha among the Muslimin, who we dearly love and respect. He gave a fatwa, and I was not laughing. I was talking to my wife. I said, look, I read it. I was still kind of confused. I'm waiting for something concrete. He didn't give it. And it was intelligently how he worded it in Arabic to give you an answer with no answer. You know what I mean? And I discussed it with my wife, and I was talking to her, and I said, I said, okay, maybe I'm reading it wrong. I'm tired. I went away for 1 hour. I came back to read it again. And I got the same synopsis again. And I said, he didn't give me an answer. But one of his students under him said strictly, hey, it's forbidden. It's haram for Muslims to do it. All protest. You see the problem we have. So last week I said something. I have to even correct myself. Remember, even when we are wrong, and that wrong is when we do it, we have to answer for it. I said that we should stay away from that. I have to go back on those words. And let me say this part, my dear brothers and sisters. If you live in Los Angeles, California, and you have the fuqaha and ulama there, and they gave you guidance to say, go ahead and go to the streets in LA. It's on you. You can follow them if you want. Okay, you follow the local fuqaha and ulama and the judgments they give there. There's no harm if you follow them. But again, my brothers and sisters, you have to ask the question, what am I getting myself into? And if somebody is killed while you're there and somebody's killed in front of you, you may have to, especially in the Western world and even in the Muslim world, you may have to answer for that murder that you didn't commit, but you were there 5 meters from it when a policeman was killed. And you know they're going to come and get you as well. You have to be very careful when you demonstrate. These type of things happen often too much. And so now what do? We have examples in the past. When Uthman radiallahu anhu was killed, this caused a big friction among the Muslimin. And the people who mainly do it were the people that we still have today, the Khawarij. And you should read about the Khawarij. And I can honestly say here unequivocally, I hate them. Fi sabi Allah Ta'ala. Because they portray themselves as Muslims, but their aim is to hurt Muslims. They have love and revere the disbelievers, but they hate the believers. And we call them Khawarij. They recite the Quran, they go to the masjid like we do, they make psalm, but their aqidah is corrupted. Those are some of the first Khawarij, and they killed a Khalifa, the third. That's right. So we've had that example. Then we had the other example where we had 2 famous Sahaba, Ali and Muawiyah, radiallahu anhuma. They argued about the bay'ah and who should take over the Khalifa. And they fought somewhat over it. And the Khawarij was involved in that. Some of the Sahaba walked away from there. walked away from it, and they retreated to their homes. They didn't get involved in the inner workings of that. We have another example what we should do. Like in my situation, I saw a lot of stuff that was going on. I didn't get involved in it. I retreated inside the house, because we have examples of that. Because what side I'm supposed to side with? We have a fitna between Muslims. So the best thing for you to do is to go and retreat from it. And we have guides for that. And we have fatwas for that. And we also have hadiths that back the play of the Muslim who retreats from it, because you have two factions. You have Muslims fighting against each other, and it's a fitna. So we have that example. And the demonstration that we have today is, again, generated, and we follow the guide of the disbelievers. And that is a no-no. And I will give you some of the things that we need to do if we are going to do this. And this is some of this is in my what I believe, and some of this I'm backed up by some of the scholars of old. I'm talking about the 11th century, 12th century, 13th century, 14th, 15th century. Some of them have had echoed some of the same things I have said. And one of the things that is disturbing about the demonstrations, even in Muslim countries, is that in it, we have all kinds of people. We don't have a qa'id, right? A commander. So the Muslims are instructed according to the Sharia. And you remember in the Sunnah, you remember what the Prophet ﷺ said, if there's three or more of us, we always have what? A qa'id. We always have an amir. We have some leader to lead, because we have to have somebody accountable, and we have to have somebody clear-minded to lead the group. This is our order from our Prophet, ﷺ. When we have these demonstrations today, who's the qa'id? I ask, who's the qa'id? Even in the Muslim countries, who is the qa'id? Who's responsible to lead thousands of people? And they're not listening to nobody. There's nobody guiding them. This is haram in Islam, because if the Muslims go out together, if there's three or more of us, we have to have one qa'id. He gives the instructions. He gives the orders, and we're supposed to follow him according to the hadiths. We're supposed to follow him, but we don't have that today. We have people say, look, this is going to be a demonstration. I don't know who the qa'id is. And then you have you have munafiqeen, hypocrites there. You have mujrimeen, criminals that go there. We have fasiqeen. We have prostitutes, pimps. We have robbers. They all going because they think it's a fad and they can go to rob somebody. We have all those people come to the demonstrations, even with the Muslim demonstrations. Nobody is governing them. And my dear brothers and sisters, here's the worst part. In the demonstrations that we have, even in the Muslim states, who's protecting our sisters? This is a grave sin in Islam. The Muslims are required to protect our sisters, because subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us the strength and gave us the authority to do that. When our sisters are marching out on the street, who's protecting them? And we cannot say nothing happens. We have a great example, two in recent years. The first one, let's talk about Sudan. Remember what happened in Sudan? They overthrew President Bashir. We're not going to get into why we did it and who was it good or not. But what happened to our sisters? They were ravished, especially the young sisters. They were ravished. Nobody was there to protect them. And matter of fact, I saw the reports. I saw some of the film. Some of the security forces, they picked out the prettiest ones who they could never get. They could never have a chance to even talk to. And they snatched them out of the crowd and took them to buildings, and they ravished them. Yes, they ravished them. Now, my brothers and sisters, why I tell you, me personally, 99.9%, I will not participate in demonstrations because they're not Islamically sound. Nobody was there to protect our sisters. And one of the things that is required in Islam, and it's a grave sin, is that we don't protect our wives, our mothers, and our daughters. No man, no Muslim is a Muslim if he can't protect his wife and his children. And if he goes and sends his daughter out there unprotected in a demonstration and she come back ravished, who is that? It's on him for that. If it's a must that he lets his daughter go, he should be there as well to make sure that she is safe. We don't have those safeguards, my brothers and sisters, today. In LA, Washington, D.C., or in Mobile, wherever we're demonstrating, even in Muslim states, we don't have those safeguards. That is haram. It's haram because our sisters are unprotected when they're out there protesting. And we have mujrimeen who take advantage of the situation. The second one, remember when they overthrew Mubarak in Egypt and they put our brother Morsi in power, he was voted in. But what happened during that time? There was a lot of violence. And then they overthrew our brother Morsi. We know who was behind that. It's well documented. The United States was behind that. They empowered President El-Sisi, who took over the reins, and they you know what happened to the Muslim Brotherhood. But do you know what happened to many of the sisters there in Egypt? They were ravished, and they called it virginity test. Yes, virginity test. This is what they called it. They were demonstrating. Nobody was protecting our sisters there. And the security forces and the mujrimeen, the criminals, took advantage, and they grabbed many girls, young sisters, and they had they had what they call virginity tests. They were violated. 16, 17, 18 years old, and they were violated. There was no father there to protect his daughter. There was no uncle. There was no Muslim with any honor to go to protect. This is why I'm against demonstrations, because they usually end up bad, especially for our sisters. If we cannot protect our sisters, then if we're going to demonstrate, men, you get out there. But you don't have your daughters and your wives because you can't protect them. You'll be held responsible for that. Now, this is just what I say, and there's other scholars of Islam have said the same thing. But I just want you to ponder. You may disagree with me. I understand that we can disagree because this is an issue that's tough. But I'm looking at it from an Islamic standpoint. I'm looking at it with from emotion because I see some elements in it that's very telling. And this one with the women, with our sisters, they're not being protected. I don't know how we can approve of that. We cannot. The second thing I want to say about this, I wish we could institute, and this is me talking. If you look at the history, especially here in Morocco, and especially in the Maghreb region, especially the 10th, 11th, 12th century, the Muslims were very smart. When they wanted to do something, they went to the scholars and got fatwas. I love that. I prefer that. If there's some injustices that's happening, I wish I could go to an imam or scholar and say, look, Imam Muhammad, this is what's going on here and here. I want a fatwa. Can I organize 10, 15 brothers to go and do this in front of the building? He gives me a fatwa. Why is that important? Because I have sound authority from a person who is knowledgeable, who's recognized, and he gives me a fatwa saying that I can do certain things. I wish we could institute that. We don't have that today. And we know why, because many of the scholars don't touch it. You see what I'm telling you here. We have great scholars here to give ambiguous answers. So you don't know if they're saying don't do it or you can do it. See, so my personal opinion, we should have a fatwa. Give a fatwa and say, yes, we can do this. Secondly, we have to nominate a qa'id, a person who is responsible, who will be the leader of the protest. If we're going to do this, and he has lieutenants, okay, sub-amirs in between to guide the people. Because what happens far too often, we have innocent people. They're good Muslims, but the mujrimeen say, hey, I'm going to take advantage of this. They go there and they begin to rob. They go to start throwing bricks through the windows so they can steal bicycles, or they steal radios and phones. This is the mujrimeen who go in between there because there's no accountability. We have to have accountability with the qa'id. He organizes, then we have lieutenants. Each way we have that. Third, we have the protection of our sisters. If they protest, there's no mixing between men and women. That's haram in Islam. There's no mixing in any demonstration between men and women. You see now, even among the Muslims, you see men and women walking together, holding hands. That's forbidden. She's not your wife. It violates the Makram rule, and we cannot get past that. I heard one Muslim say it's too conservative. He just cast himself out of the Islam because he said, I'm not going to obey it because it's too conservative. He just said he didn't want to do it. He's out because what he said, he took himself out. You have to obey that. If you say you disagree with some that the prophet has said and you disagree, okay, disagree with your heart. But when you openly come on YouTube and say, hey, I'm not going to follow it, you're out. You're gone. The fourth issue. If we're going to have these demonstrations, we have to have the niyyah that we are not going to violate the Sharia Islamiyah. Why are we out there on the streets? We want to go after the government to do what? To stop the injustice? Okay, we have to have the right niyyah if we're going to do this. And if we do this, we have to avoid one of the pitfalls. That's the threatening the government, threatening officials. It's haram. We cannot do this. We have to have the right niyyah if you're going to make the demonstrations to go there under the Sharia. Now, another idea. If this demonstration is designed as a precursor to overthrow the head of state, the Hakam in Arabic, you have to follow rules to that. And the Prophet ﷺ has put many rules into that. You know that. And some of them, if you are not a scholar, they cross lines here, they cross lines over here, and you have to read these hadiths, and you have to find the verses in the Quran to understand it, and you have to have somebody versed in the hadiths, because it's a science, to explain it, because some of it is confusing, because Subhanahu wa ta'ala has laid down some rules, and our prophet has gave us some orders for us to follow, and we should follow that. And if you look at the hadiths, the Prophet ﷺ is hard about people removing the rulers. So we go to demonstrate because there's no jobs. We go to demonstrate because there's some things that's happening, people been arrested and so forth. And we say, now we're going to move the ruler. What has happened in the Arab states today and all these demonstrations? They fight the rulers to bring them to the Sharia? No, to bring them to what? The democracia, to democracy. That in itself is kufr. Democracy is not the governance of the Muslims. But yet we're fighting and we say, hey, yeah, you hear them and you see signs that Muslims are carrying. Democracy, we want democracy. They're out. And they're going to go to replace a ruler that the two-bop governments are going to come back and put their people in there anyway. And they're never going to put anybody under the Sharia because they don't want the Sharia. They're going to put another person who's is a secularist or a modernist into the power. So you go to overthrow and have a demonstration to overthrow somebody to bring them to democracy. That's haram in Islam, my dear brothers and sisters. It's kufr. Because the Subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it. There's no governance except his. He has told us this in many, many ayats in the Quran that it's only his governance. And we have a rule, says that we have a dispute, we have a problem. We take it to him and to our messenger, alayhi salatu salam. We don't take it to the Tubab. We don't take it to their government. No. We go to our scholars and we try to find answers within the Quran and the Sunnah. That's the way it goes. So we have to be very careful here when we do hit the streets. Is the objective, the precursor, is to remove the ruler? Because he may feel that and he may overreact to it. And the Tubab who's sitting behind him, he gonna say, look, you need to activate the army. You need to activate the National Guard. You need to activate the Mujrimeen. And they do. And they come and they swarm down on the crowd because out of fear that they think they're going to be overthrown. I hope you understand what I'm saying, my brothers and sisters, how dangerous it is when we demonstrate. It's dangerous because you have actions and reactions. That ruler who sit there and sees 10,000 people strong, he starts sweating in his chair. And you have a Tubab standing there who wants to kill Muslims anyway. Now he has the opportunity. He gives the order. He tells him, look, you want to stay in power? You activate the military. You activate all the Mujrimeen and let them go after people. And they do. We see this all over the place, especially in Muslim states. And they start cracking heads. Boom, 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 boom. And women get ravished. This has been the order of thumb. Now, I will say this. Here in Morocco, we don't have that much like that, okay? Our security forces, they may have troubles, but they are more respectful than most of the others. Like in Egypt, they're not respectful, but here they are still more or less respectful. Yes, we have some skirmishes here and there, but you rarely ever hear the security forces ever getting a bunch of women and ravishing them. We don't have that here. That's one thing that's beautiful about Morocco. We don't have that. We have demonstrations. Yeah, we may have some scuffles, but they don't take our sisters and ravish them. And they don't take them to give them quote unquote virginity tests like they said in Egypt. But still, with that said, we still have problems with people who have been arrested, and we have overreactions. So we have to be very careful of that. So now let's look at Sheikh Kawardawi. He gave a proof to why he was saying what he said. Our Sheikh Islam, our father of the Fuqaha ulama in this era, he said that the demonstration basically is a means of ways of where one Muslim's voice is not heard, but the thousands are heard. And it makes those who have wronged them listen. He did say that. But he prefaced it by giving one of in Surah Ma'idah, which is Surah 5, in verse 2. And he said here that, and this is what I'm talking about, the demonstration, about how the Nia, it has to be right. It has to be under the Sharia. And we have each person that's participating. We have the Qa'id who's leading the way. He's making sure that we're covered under the Sharia, that we're not violating the Sunnah. And so we have the people, each one coming, each one's responsible for that. And we have the emirs in between there to make sure that the demonstrations, the Muslims, are abiding by the Sharia. He said here, help one another at the end of the verse. Now this is Hayat 2, okay, Surah 5. He said at the end, help one another in righteousness and piety, but help not one another in sin and rancor. For Allah is strict. Fear Allah, for Allah is strict in punishment. That was wise counsel by Sheikh Islam Kawardawi. He didn't say that we can't demonstrate, but he also prefaced it by giving us that, saying, look, if it becomes unruly, we have criminal elements who want to burn and rob and pillage. We should not go join in that. We should help one another to stay within the boundaries. This doesn't happen a lot, especially in America. We have to be very careful of that. And this is a beautiful proof. Again, he talks about that we help one another in righteousness and piety. So even if we do demonstrate, again, if we go with the right niyyah, he's not saying don't do it, but he's saying if you're going to do it, you have to make sure that you are righteously doing it and with piety. And this brings me to another point. Let's think about something. We look at the Palestinian issue, we go back to that. And I'm going to make the nexus between that with what's happening with the Muslims. I ain't talking about the Jews and the Christians and the others. In the demonstrations, have you noticed something? And my brother there in Atlanta, Bilal Mukas, that's what I think he took his last name. He had an interesting thing in Facebook, and I agree with him. And I told him I agree with what he said, and I echoed his words. We have demonstrations today of Muslims. We have many young men who don't even have nothing to do with Islam, but they're first ones to go demonstrate. And when it's time to go make the prayer and the salat, they have nothing to do with that. But yet they go to the street to protest. So which righteousness are they going under? You can't even get them. They can't even answer the call of their dan to come to the masjid to pray. But yet they go to demonstrate. And we have that problem there in Palestine. We have many young men who are out of Islam. But yes, they have a common goal. They have a common enemy. But you have to ask the question, why subhanahu wa ta'ala is not given the victory yet? We talked about the hadiths already, but we have far too many that there who are not practicing Muslims at all. They have left the religion. They're out, but they go demonstrate. And that is a sad epitaph that is prevalent among us today. And that is something that bothers me tremendously. When I see the demonstrations there, and then I notice when the demonstrations finish, All these young men who are out there with banners, screaming, hollering, let's do this. We want that. We want this and that. But they don't even pray. They don't even pray. And let's look at this even further. You go into a demonstration. Okay. Now, their jihad is wrong. Their aqidah is wrong. Let's look at this. We look at many young men. Their jihad is wrong. Okay, jihad under the 4 conditions that I talked about many times every week. The 4 conditions. We're not talking about bombing and killing. The 4 essential things in jihad that they're sitting in violation. Here they go to demonstrate, and their jihad number 1 of cleaning their nafs, they have not done it. So how can they walk and do demonstrations when themselves are unclean? Many of them are najis. They're unclean. They don't even pray. They don't even make wudu, but they go to demonstrate. So 1, their first jihad to clean themselves, they don't do it. 2nd, their jihad to fight shaitan, they don't do it. They go with shaitan, tell them, hey, you don't need to pray, yeah. You don't need to pray. You don't need to make wudu. You can go smoke and drink. So he succumbs to the waswas of shaitan. Okay. 2nd, the 3rd jihad. Does he fight the hypocrite? No, because he is a hypocrite. He sides with the hypocrites. So, his jihad against them, there's no jihad because he's with them. And 4th is the disbelievers. He doesn't have no problem with the disbelievers, but he has problems with the believers. This is the condition today of many who participate in demonstrations. That's who you're walking with when you walk down the street. I refuse to be with them. I'm not going to walk down the street with a najis, a young man, or even an old man, or somebody like this who is outside of Islam and have nothing to do with it. And we have a whole bunch of people who are outside. They and their jihad is wrong, and their aqidah is wrong. These are the ones who are most likely to seek violence, my brothers and sisters. They can put you in jail. You're walking with the mujrimeen, and their objective is different than yours. They see a store there. They say, you know what? I don't have no money. So let me go under the auspices of the demonstration and start breaking out the windows to steal the cell phones. I can steal 20, 30 and sell them after this. And they do it. Here you standing by there. Now the police come. Out of frenzy, they crack your head open. You had nothing to do with that, but they crack your head open because you were there. And this happens too many times. That's why I'm saying, my brothers and sisters, be very careful when you go out there. And who are the people you're participating with? You have to ask that question. I just gave you examples of who you should be walking with. And subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and even our prophet says, you hang around with the believers. Just because a person says he's Muslim doesn't mean he's a believer. He's Muslim by name. And I gave you what some of them are. They go to demonstrations, but they don't pray. And the 4 conditions of the jihad, the principle 4, they don't do it. So why are you demonstrating with them? You should not be. Shouldn't you be with them? Now, the other is 64. It's Surah Maryam, which is another one that is Surah 19, and the verse is 64. And our Sheikh gave us this as well. And he says about the command of our Lord. Again, he wants us to follow. He's given us, again, okay, you can demonstrate, but I'm not really giving you approval to demonstrate, but you can't demonstrate. You see what I mean? So he's giving you ambiguity, even in the verses of the Quran. He's not giving you a clear answer. Okay. And then we have Surah 42, where subhanahu wa ta'ala in there talking, and the verse is 21. And here, subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us here about the decree of judgment. The matter would have been decided between them once, but verily wrongdoers will have grievous penalty. Again, he who's their partners, the God who established for them some religion without permission of Allah. I said that about that last week. Some people make demonstrations a religion. They actually get clean for that. Do you know that? We have people who go to demonstrations to go take a shower, but he doesn't make wudu for prayer, but yet he goes to take a shower. He go get a haircut. He goes to the hammam to go get clean. He go get his he go get good clothes. He puts clothes on so he can go to the demonstration. But he will not put good clothes on to go to the masjid. He will not take a shower to make ablution to clean himself before the prayer. But yet he'll take a shower to go get good clothes, go get a haircut, to go to the demonstration. This is what we have today among the Muslims, and why the demonstration is so flawed and is bad. And even though we have good people in it, but we have these type here that make it bad. And I'm hoping that you understand, and I'm not saying that you agree with me, my brothers and sisters. I'm only giving you some of the thoughts here, and I want you to make your own decisions. As I said, if in your region where you live and you have a fatwa, or you have the fuqaha ulama says, look, we can do this, we can do that, you follow what your heart tells you and what is right in Islam. If you follow the imam, it's no fault to you, but in some ways it still is. You have to understand what you are demonstrating for. And remember, I said the conditions of that demonstration. If you cannot protect the sisters, is not a proper demonstration. If the sisters go participate, we should have brothers around them, not in there with them holding hands. No, when the sisters are walking, we should have brothers in front, we should have brothers on the side, on both sides, and we have brothers in the back, just in case the mujrimeen come to go get these sisters to ravish them. We should have brothers there to protect them. This is our job as Muslim men. This is our responsibility as Muslims, and in our households, outside our households. We are to protect our sisters in all walks of life. If we're walking down the street, we see them, mujrimeen are attacking them, we should go to our best ability to assist her. If she needs assistance, we should go help our sisters because they are weaker than us. Subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us a strength to protect them. So when you're on the demonstrations, my brothers, you go out there and you see these sisters are out there. You go to the qayyid. If you don't have one, you get some brothers say, hey, look, I'm going to hang back here to protect our sisters. And you guys form a wall so our sister can protest without being ravished. And subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward you for that, inshallah ta'ala, because you protected your sister. You protected somebody's mother. You protected somebody's daughter. So this is important, my brother and sister. I'm hoping that you see what your brother here is talking about, how important, because I look at things differently. I don't look at it from the emotion. I go back into the every ear. I pray to subhanahu wa ta'ala and I ask him for guidance about such issue. And I plead with subhanahu wa ta'ala to give me some direction and some guidance on this about what can I say to my brothers and sisters to help them in this time of need. And I started coming up with answers. Then I found this Sheikh Islam, what he said here. So I'm giving you these things only for you to ponder what I'm saying. But you guys follow what you follow there in your region. You have something concrete, you do it. And it's no fault to you per se. And I'm not going to fault you. You say, look, our Sheikh Islam, he said we should take to Washington, D.C., we should do this and that. You answer to him, no problem. That's going to be between you and the imam who gave the order and subhanahu wa ta'ala, not with me. Now, as I said before, you have a flawed demonstration. I've been talking about our sisters a lot. Why? Because every time, who suffers greatest in these revolutions and these demonstrations? It's always the woman. In time of war, as my wife always talked about, it's always the woman. She suffered. The demonstrations are no different. But we should not have any mixing with men and women in the demonstration. If the sisters are walking, as I said, we should have a wall around them. Yes, no problem. But we should still keep our eyes glued to the problems at hand, to the mujrimeen. But don't be watching in there to look at the pretty girls inside, because you just compromise yourself. You're not supposed to do that. You know that the rule for the Muslims, you can look once, no shame on you. But when you look twice at her, it's a sin. So you have to be grounded, but you go there to protect her. No, none of us should be walking in between the sisters. I don't care who you are, what man you are. The woman have effect on us. Subhanahu wa ta'ala has made her that way. Here I'm walking in between the sisters. I got beautiful women all the way around me. What happens? The dhikr of Allah begins to go away and shaitan begins to enter. And because you have a beautiful sister to your left, you have a beautiful sister to your front of you, and you got a sister over to the right who's beautiful. Here you walking in, and then you yelling and screaming, overthrow this, da, 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 and I'm holding hands with them. You know the rules about touching the woman who's not, you know, within who's within the protection, you know, our mothers, sisters, so forth and so on. She's not your wife. I'm holding hands with her. And you know the effect that has on a man touching the soft skin of the sisters. That has an effect on us, and you know that. That's why we are not supposed to touch. Remember our prophet, Islam, he gave us an example of that. You remember when they took Mecca, our prophet when they gave the bay'ah, he never touched not one sister's hand, not one. And Aisha, radiallahu anha, she testified to that in the hadith, that he accepted bay'ah from their verbal. He never hugged one of them. He never touched one of them. He gave us the example. You don't do it for obvious reasons. So in a nutshell, my brothers and sisters, I'm giving you some things here. And I'll give you a couple of other points and we're going to close up here. My wife and I talk about this a lot too. One of the conditions, if we're going to demonstrate, we have to make sure that violence is not one of the issues that we are there for. But unfortunately, it's hard to do. We should not go there with the intention for violence, that we're going to go and do things to the police or anyone else. Now, I want to bring up something here before I close. I'm going to give you some hadiths that's in the Book of Leadership, and this is in Sahih Muslim, and these are all authentic hadiths. The Prophet ﷺ has made some points. This is why this is dangerous. If the ruler of the land says, "I don't want you to demonstrate," are we to follow him? Listen to what our prophet has said. Okay, he says here, whoever obeys me has obeyed Allah. And whoever disobeys me has disobeyed Allah. Whoever obeys the leader has obeyed me. And whoever disobeys the leader has disobeyed me. You see, my brothers and sisters, why you have to always go back to Kitabillah and the Sunnah Rasuli. Alayhi salatu salam. You have to always refer back to them. Don't go to the Tubab. They will mislead you. You always return, you Muslim, you always return back to the book to get guidance. When you hear the Tubab coming in between you, or you hear some hypocrite, yeah, come on, you know, we're gonna go and let's throw rocks at there he is, there's the leader, there he is over there, let's do this. You better go back to the books and start reading. Now, let's go back a little bit on this. You say, Yahya, what if he tells me that he wants me to start to drink and smoke? No. That's where the condition goes. Again, our prophet says you do not obey him when he orders you into sin. No. You don't obey him then, but you still cannot overthrow him. This is what I'm talking about. If he gives you, even though there's injustice in the land, he says to you, I don't want you to demonstrate. You should obey him. You should obey him, even though there's injustices. If he comes out and says, don't do it, or if he says, I'll listen to representatives from the groups, he's given the order, because he has to answer to Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. And our prophet told you here, you be very careful. If you disobey him, you disobeyed the prophet, alayhi salatu salam. Now, if he's telling you, look, we're going to start debauchery, we're going to open up debauchery all over the place, we're going to, I want you to be involved in selling cigarettes and beer and wine, you don't obey that. You're not required to do that. And a couple of other things about these hadiths, there's many of them. If the leader is bad, and we have many all over the place, and you want to take him out, you say, you know what, we have enough here, but here's one of the conditions. Did you ever see this man in open kufr, disbelief? No, that condition is gone. Even if you heard somebody talk, did you see him actually involved in kufr and disbelief? No. Did you see him ever give orders for disbelief? No. So that's one of the conditions. You can't take him out. Okay, that's one. Second, in this, do you know that he prays or not? Oh, we heard rumors. The prime minister, he doesn't pray. How do you know that? Do you know firsthand? That's the second condition. You can't overthrow him. You can't, because you have no knowledge to know if he's praying or not. He says he's praying. You have to go by his word because he's Muslim. As he says he's Muslim. So that's the second condition. That's two. The third, can you hear the adhan being sounded off? Everybody hears the adhan in Muslim lands, especially. If you hear the adhan and the masjid is open, you can't take him out, even though it's injustices in the land. Now, there's some other conditions, but I just give you some portions of this so you can go to do your research and how serious this situation is, my brothers and sisters. Demonstration is not an Islamic creation. It's a creation from the devil and from the disbelievers. We have to be very careful. My wife and I have discussed this many times as well. I've saw what the Sheikh Islams have said. I even saw what the Saudi leadership. I'm not talking about leadership, I'm talking about the government. I'm talking about some of the Fuqaha ulama said. They didn't want it. They didn't like it. And they said it's against it. And many people jumped them. And one of my favorite brothers that I'm kind of close to also gave a fatwa saying that it's forbidden to do it. And he ignored all other principles. So we have that side of the coin where we have the same thing like in prayer. We have those hard line Fuqaha ulama said, if you don't pray, you are kafir. But we have the other Fuqaha ulama that says, no, well, we have to wait a minute. We have to give them a chance. We have to understand. We got to talk to them. We have that. Same with demonstrations. We have hard line, hard conservative Muslims, okay? And they have proofs to say what they say. They said it's forbidden to demonstrate. But then we have the other Fuqaha over here that says, no, we should be able to do it. As long as we meet certain guidelines, there's no open mixing, and so forth and so on. So we have that. So I give you those things today, my brothers and sisters. I still didn't give you an answer. Why? Because the Fuqaha ulama themselves cannot give us an answer. Half says you can do, other half says you cannot do. But I'm giving you some conditions for you to do your research. And I'm hoping that you do this research and you can come up to your own conclusions because it's important. And I gave you the conditions, especially about the rulers, because that is something. And remember, the fourth condition is this. You want to take him out. Who are you going to replace him with? Look what happened in Libya. They killed Gaddafi, didn't they? And look what has happened. Look what's happened in Tunisia. Yes, they are kind of back, but look at all the problems. They took out, yes, the ruler, he's dead now. I'm not going to talk against him, but he died here recently. But in his reign, it was tough. And they overthrew him. And the country is still reeling today. Look at Egypt. Look at Egypt. They took out two rulers. One who was basically self-promoted, the other who was voted in when the Americans and Europeans, the Tubab, said, look, we want you Egyptians to have elections. They put in the Muslim Brotherhood. And our brother Morsi, Rahim Allah, he was trying to bring the people to the Sharia. He began to remove some of the old guard who made sima-ta'a on the armor of the Salibiyin, the Crusaders in their governments. And of course, they led a rebellion against him. And so you see those examples. And what did they do? Did they say they wanted to bring in the Sharia? No, they want to be in democracy. No Muslim takes out your brother, even if he's sinful, and you bring him to democratic ways, because you're not going to have Subhanahu wa Ta'ala's blessing. You cannot do that, my brothers and sisters. You cannot do that. If somebody is sinning, yes, you stop them with your hand or your heart. You know the hadith, if you can stop from sinning. But you don't remove a ruler so you can put in democracy, or you can put in another secularist or modernist into that position, and you have the same thing. Look what has happened in Egypt today. They removed our brother, Rahim Allah. He's dead now. Essentially, we know what happened to him in jail. Even President Erdogan, he talked about that, what they did to him in prison. And what did they do? They put in the worst. Look what has happened in that government now. The people who fought to kill, and look what look what's happened in their country now. They have a man who is, the human rights violations are some of the greatest in the world there in Egypt now. You should be very careful what you ask for. When you go overthrow rulers and you replace them with somebody worse, this is what happens when you talk about, I'm going to put democracy in. You don't put the Sharia, but you can put democracy. Be very careful of that, my brothers and sisters. So with that said, today, my brothers and sisters, I know my sister here, Mina, she said big fitna. Oh boy, my dear sister is correct when she says that. It is a big fitna, my brothers and sisters. Demonstrations and what is happening around us today is a big fitna. But you know, I gave you some examples for you Muslims to go by. If they call you for the demonstration, the first thing they call you, say, yeah, you know what, man, we never see you. It's time for you to man up now. It's time for you to come out there. I want you to do your thing with us out there in the city. The first thing I'm going to ask is, one, who's the Qa'id? They didn't pass that. Second, what is the Nia? Why are we doing it? Is it based under the Sharia? Is it in violation of the Sharia and the Sunnah? They violated the second one. Third, how about the sisters who are going to be walking with us? Are they going to be protected? 3 is gone. Don't go. That's the bottom line. That's my rule. I won't go. If they can't answer those questions like that, I don't go. I'm just giving you some guidance. I'm not saying you follow, but I'm giving you some good guidance that I believe that it's sound within the Sharia and the Sunnah. I ask good questions. I want to know, because the Prophet, we have endeavors involving Muslims. We always have one Qa'id, and you have the others follow behind him, and you are ordered to follow his lead. The Prophet ﷺ has said that. I asked this question. Okay, we have a gathering, more than 3 people. There's got to be a Qa'id. This is Sunnah. We have to do this. There's no Qa'id. I'm not. That's one. There's no, and is this in violation of the Sharia? Are we asking something that's in violation of the Sharia? They can't answer that. That's 2. If we can't protect our sisters in it, I'm not in it. I stay out at fitna. I stay home, and I go watch CNN. I'm joking now, but I'll just stay inside the house and whatnot, and and this is what I would do. So, my brothers and sisters, I gave you some examples today on this. Our Sharia is Mubarakah. Subhanahu wa ta'ala gave it to us for a reason. And we have the best of examples in our Prophet ﷺ, where we can understand the Sharia and understand the Sunnah. This is important. And we have that. So why are we fighting today to go away from that? We are. We don't even want to obey it. But we have the best law. We have the best person who we can learn from, the Prophet ﷺ. And it's not only we as Muslims say that. Even the greatest of the historians wrote that the most influential man in history was whom? The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. That's right. He's the most influential person in this world has known. It was him that was voted on. This is by the Tubab. So if they say this, and here we are, we don't even want to follow our Prophet. And here's the Tubab, some of the historians who voted on this, that he was the most influential person that the world has ever known. That's interesting, isn't it? Very interesting. So, in a nutshell, my brothers and sisters, I give you these examples today, and I'm hoping that you ponder through these and you think twice about entering any demonstration, because as my sister said, it's a fitna. You got to be very careful today when you do it. You see what happened there in New York City here I guess almost 2 weeks ago. They had the demonstration there in New York City, and some of our brothers went and beat this poor Jewish man. He had nothing to do with the bombing in Gaza, but they saw he was Jew because they saw the I forgot what they call them, I forgot what they call that, their kufi, and they went to beat him. And some of the Muslims who was there watching it were arrested as well, even though they had nothing to do with it. And they opened themselves up. Why? Because there was no Qa'id. There was no commander who's giving instructions to the Muslims on what you should do. There was none. And the Mujrimeen among the Muslimin, the criminals among the Muslims, went and used that as a vehicle to go beat and find Jews to beat them. And they paid for it. And many were arrested who had nothing to do with the beating. That's why, as our sister said here, Mina said, it's a fitna. Be very careful. Be very careful when you enter into that. My dear brother and sister, Isaac, thank you, my brother, for showing up today. And as usual, my dear sister, Mina, And also, and my dear brother Malik, thank you, my dear brother, for showing up today. I'm glad that you came. And I want to say something here, and I'll close. You know, I had a good experience here, started yesterday. DNA testing was revealed, and my sister and my nephew gave me the information, and I'm still waiting on my extra results I had. And I found a sister who is related to us, and I was in contact with her, and I talked to her about almost an hour yesterday, and we found so many similarities. When I started seeing the pictures, I saw her father, who looked just like my father, and you know, I had this euphoria that hit me yesterday. I could not explain it. It's like I was actually now home in Africa. It's like now I know I'm African because I found my cousin. It's a she, and she was just as happy as I was. And we talked for an hour, and we talked about so many different things. And I'm saying to you, my brothers and sisters, those of you who can afford it, get your DNA tested. Find your relatives here in Africa. It's so rewarding. It is so rewarding. I can't explain how I felt, and I was so happy. But I'm announcing that to you now, is that I found, and you know, the dreams I had. I was talking to my wife about this. I have many dreams that kind of she verified what I had been saying. I told many people I had these dreams before I came to Africa. The people who I saw, where they came from, my sister just verified this. My cousin verified this. She talked to me and told me exactly what I was told by one of my ancestors in a dream that almost brought me to tears. And I told my wife about that. And she told me about the migration, the same as I was told. She told me about the people and what they did, the same thing I was told. This is the first time I ever talked to her, which was yesterday. And so we went through all of these things. And, you know, I was so happy that I found my cousin here in Africa. And, you know, I'm going to do everything I can to stay in touch with her. We vowed to do that. Matter of fact, we're going to open up a thing to where we're going to put all the names of the ancestors in a tree. And we're going to have this. And my nephew probably would do this in the United States. And I would try to do it here in Africa. And boy, I tell you, I got a mixed blood. I mean, you know, she's related on my mother's side of the family. My mother was very, very light-skinned, but she was more like Fulani. And same with my dear cousin. She has the same influences and everything. And so, you know, and she's from the Senegambia region. So we have DNA traced back there. And so, you know, she's, matter of fact, she's kind of like my complexion as well. And I looked at the cousins and everything else, and they remind me of my cousins back home. So there's definitely that nexus because we have so many. And her father looks like my father. I cannot believe it. If my father put on the agbada, you know, that they wear in West Africa, and he sported a beard, they walked together down the street, everybody's going to know they were brothers. The same type of height, body build, the facial structure. Amazing, amazing. So I just wanted to give you that to share my happiness that I found one of my ancestors here, a sister, a cousin, a blood relative in Africa. And I'm just so happy and tickled pink about that, so to speak, you know, and my wife can attest to that. My wife talked to her as well. And we shared pictures. I just cannot express how much happiness I found yesterday when I found her and the rest of my cousins, some of her cousins and others I will find here later. And matter of fact, I was told I even have some of my relatives here in Fez. Can you believe that? Here, I live here in Fez 15 years. I might even pray next to them, and I didn't know that they're my relatives. But I have relatives here in Fez with my blood. Yes. And they were from the Senegambia region. They're here in Fez. Amazing. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Allahu Akbar. Well, my brothers and sisters, thank you for showing up today. And I hope you got something out of this. And I hope that I make you ponder and wonder about the demonstrations and about our Sharia and about our Sunnah and about Subhanahu wa ta'ala and what he wants and what our Prophet wants. And so I hope that you got something out of this. And again, my dear sister, thank you for showing up. My dear brother, Isaac, Malik, also as well. And those who came to listen and who will come in the future, inshallah, ta'ala. And may subhanahu wa ta'ala bless all of us and keep us strong in these days, because we're under a lot of fitna. And as well as that, my brothers there in the United States and Europe and so forth, get your DNA tested. Get your DNA tested. Find your relatives here in Africa. Find your relatives, and the peace and what the joy that you will find from that. And you please do that. That there closes the book. That there, when you find your ancestors here, now you are African. There's no doubt. When you find your ancestors here, you just codified that. You just verified that you are African because you found them. There's no more guessing now. You found your ancestors here. You are African. This closes the door. Now you know who you are. You are African because you found your relatives here. With that said, my brothers and sisters, thank you for listening to me. I leave you the beautiful words of Jannah. Salamu alaikum. Rahmatullahi barakatuhu.